In this video, we're going to take a look at how you're going to submit projects, assignments to Canvas, projects that are created in Visual Studio. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of project you're creating, whether it's a console application in C# or C++, or Universal Windows app, or Xamarin, or any other technology in Visual Studio. It's essential that you submit the entire source code and files that are created with it. So we're going to go through how that works. Just as a heads up, using Visual Studio 2017, if it's a fresh install and you didn't have a previous version of Visual Studio, the location or the default location where your projects are saved has changed. Depending on settings on your system, if you had a prior version, say Visual Studio 2015, it may reuse the previous location or a structure like the previous location, or it may use the new one. So it's can be a little confusing at first, but they've implemented a new structure which allows automatic backup of files. So it's actually quite a good system, and I'll go over that as part of this video. So let's create a new project. For this demonstration, I'm just going to create a classic console application. I'll take the default name here, which is console app 1. Actually, you know what, I'll change it. I'll make it console app 10. I'm just going to say OK. This will just create the bare bones console application in C#. I do actually want to write a tiny bit of code because I want something to be saved. So let's see, it's system console.writeline. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say something super intelligent like boo. I hope this doesn't scare you when you see it. Actually, I'll use an uppercase B that when it shouldn't be as scary. Okay, so let me run this. Control F5. There you go. So there's my very simple app. Now, what actually has happened at this moment in time is it's actually been saved in 2 locations. If we take a look in Visual Studio 2017, now this is on a fresh install. This, as I say, may be different if you've had a prior version, but you'll notice that I'm looking in the Documents folder, and on prior versions there was a folder here called Projects, and then you would look inside there and there would be your source code, all the projects that you've created. If you're going to go to the Documents Visual Studio, you'll see the Backup Files folder. Now this is where backups of your projects are saved. So you can see here there's console app 10. So it's actually in the backup, but that's not where you should be getting your final build from. You should be getting your final build from the repo location. So what Visual Studio is doing, and it does support GitHub plugins, etc., it's matching the more traditional repo terminology. So if we go to our directory or folder structure on Windows, okay, you are a user. In my case here, I just called myself user 1. There was a folder called source that was created, and inside the source is a folder called repos. Now, how do you get to this if you're not familiar with Windows? You want to open your File Explorer. You want to go to this PC, your main hard drive, and what you're going to do is you're going to look for the folder called users. So anybody using that system will be listed in there. If you're the only user, you'll be the only folder inside there. So I'm going to open it. I should have said the only user folder. These are just default. And if you don't see this one, don't worry about it. It's hidden on most systems. So user 1 is my default name for this test setup. So I open user 1, and inside there's a bunch of stuff. Again, some of these things you won't see on your system because they're normally hidden, but you should see most of it. And what you're going to see is the source folder. Okay, so there it is, source, and if I open that one up, I'll go in there and I'll see the repos folder, and that's where my source code is. Once you've done this once you know where your code exists, you're in good shape. If you want to use a different location, okay, I'm going to go back to the File, New Project. Whenever you create a project, you can specify the location. So by default, it's set to my user 1 source repos. If I wanted to, I could browse and I could store it somewhere else. So if I wanted to store it in my Documents folder under Visual Studio, I could right click on here and create a new folder if I wanted. And that folder could be called projects. And then I would just select that folder, and that's the folder that would be used to store my code in future. If you prefer the old way of doing it, it's totally up to you, but please decide and stick to that structure so you know where all your source code is. Okay, so assuming you know that, assuming you know where you're going to save your code, once your project is ready to be submitted, you're going to navigate to the folder where it lives. So I'm going to use the repos folder. Now, remember in Microsoft's development environment, you have a solution and you have projects. The outer name of this repo is Console App 10. That is the solution folder. Now inside there, when you open it up, you'll see another folder called Console App 10. And sometimes this confuses people. Please remember that is the project called Console App. A solution can have one or more projects. By default, we're just using a single project, but more complicated builds can have many projects inside them. So the outer folder is the solution, and the inner folder here is the project. I do not want you to submit just this folder. You must submit the outer folder. So we want everything here, this entire folder. Now I'll close Visual Studio just to sort of clean this out of the way. You can rename this, like I can make a copy of it, and this is what I recommend you do before you submit. Make a copy and paste it. Do that again. Okay, and then I would name this, put your full student name here, so student name, and then assignment 1, ready to be submitted. And then what you're going to do is you can use RAR, you can use 7-zip, or you can just use zip, whatever one of those three you like. Just send it to a compressed folder, and there it is. And that is what you submit. That must have absolutely everything inside it. Okay, this is very important. When I look inside that folder, I can see both the solution file and the project file and everything else that's inside it. I cannot mark an assignment that is not submitted properly, and if assignment's not submitted properly and I have to ask for it and it comes back in after the due date, it will be marked as late. So folks, please make sure you follow these instructions in detail. And that's it for this video.